This is IK Multimedia's ARC On-EAR, and essentially what it is ARC On-EAR does for headphones what ARC Studio does for your monitors and your room. So ARC On-EAR, this complete self-contained system, will flatten your headphones, so they don't have a big bass boost, for example. It will also put you in a perfect virtual mix room and also allow you to listen to your mix through various types of speakers, whether they're high-end speakers, low-end speakers, or even things like TVs or iPhones. So that way you can really check your mix on different types of devices. Now, the problem with just mixing on standard headphones is it's a very unnatural way to listen to audio because the audio is directly injected into your left and right ear, which means there's no interaction from the room, there's no crosstalk from the speakers, there's no reflection, you have a collapse of the middle. So, whenever you're making spatial decisions, it can be kind of tough if you're just have that left and right injection because you don't have the actual feeling of being in the real world. Another problem is headphones often have a big boost in the bass on the low end. So if you're listening through that while you're mixing, you may end up making decisions that turn that bass down in your mix. Then once you hear it in the real world, it sounds, thin and pathetic. So there's all kinds of problems that can happen to your mix when you're just using standard headphones. But what this does, what the ARC On-EAR does, again, puts you in that perfect virtual studio, flattens out your headphones, no matter what headphones you have, by the way. I think there's well over 100 models in here. They've modeled basically everything you're going to really be using. And you can do all of that with just this hardware. You don't have to load up a plugin or anything like that. Now, as far as your connections go, you can actually use this directly with a computer with just say a USB connection. So all your audio will be going through this for example, if you want to listen through headphones through a perfect studio room. You can also use it, of course, with your audio interface through the 3.5 millimeter input, stereo input on the rear. And you can also use this with really anything that has those kinds of connections. You don't even need to use the software, by the way, because you can actually switch, say, different presets and things directly on here. You can have up to 5 presets loaded directly on this unit. And the unit is also portable. So if you want to mix while you're on an airplane or something through headphones, you could do that and then trust your mix done completely on headphones on no matter what type of device they're being played back on. Again, it's also very portable, being that there is a rechargeable battery in here. It does all the processing right here on board. Again, no need for a plugin, anything like that. It's all this one device, self-contained, pretty cool device. So let's unbox it. We'll check it out, and I'll walk you through the software and what you can do with your ARC On-EAR from IK Multimedia. First, I'll let you guys take a look at the box. Just pause if you want to read it. Pop it open. Here's the unit and an included case, a card with your serial number on the other side. Inside the case, you'll find the included cables. There's a USB-C cable, which is about 26 inches long, and a 3.5 millimeter cable, again about 26 inches long, and a 1/4 inch adapter. The unit itself is very high quality with all metal housing and a sturdy feel. It also has a rubber base, so when you set it down, it's not going to be sliding all over your desk. The tech specs are also very high end, with sample rates from 44.1 all the way to 192K, an insanely wide frequency response, quality converters, and a digitally controlled analog volume knob. On the front is the headphone output. On the rear, you have a power switch, USB-C port, and a 3.5 millimeter input port. On the top is the volume knob, calibration button, studio button, and function button. And there's also 5 LED lights that refer to the presets that you have stored on the unit. And I'll show you how that works in just a minute. The first thing you'll want to do is register the unit. You can do that from this site, or even better, just use the IK Multimedia Product Manager, register it, download your software, and install. All right, so now we can connect this to our computer or even just to our audio interface. Of course, we have a couple different options with that USB-C and or the 3.5 millimeter. So if I was going to use the USB-C, of course, plug the USB-C into the ARC On-EAR, plug the other end into your computer, and then this basically turns into a small audio interface. So you can actually set the ARC On-EAR to be an audio source directly on your computer for sounds like YouTube, for example. And of course, you can set it as the audio interface for your DAW. You'll also have to have the USB-C connected if you want to use the software and to initially set up all your presets. But once you get everything on here, then you don't even have to pull up that software if you don't want to. Now, the other option would be using the 3.5 millimeter. And in that case, let's say you want to use it with your standard audio interface. Of course, plug into your ARC on-ear, plug the other end into a headphone output of your audio interface, and then make sure you turn up that headphone output on your audio interface. And again, you don't even have to have the USB-C connected in that case, since you'll have your presets loaded right here. You can switch through them very easily, just like that. All right. Of course, you can also plug your 3.5 millimeter into a tablet, for example. So if you have a 3.5 millimeter output on a tablet, plug this in, you could hear all your audio in that perfectly tuned studio mixing on your headphones, maybe you have like a DAW app or something. So you could actually mix just using the ARC on-ear with your tablet, for example. Of course, you can also plug it in to, say, a headphone output of a mixer, or into a headphone output of studio monitors, or into more of a hi-fi output. If you just want to use this for listening, for example, you could plug it into the output of your sound system that you have for your TV, for example, and listen to a TV show, a movie, a podcast, music, whatever, in sort of a perfectly tuned studio room. So in our case, we're actually going to plug in both, because I have to show you guys the software, of course. And when we have it plugged in, of course, it's going to charge up the battery. You can also charge up the battery using basically, like a cell phone charger. Something like that will work too. So that's really the cool thing about the ARC on-ear, is you have all those options. Again, just use the USB-C maybe directly into your laptop. Say you're stuck at an airport or something for 2, 3, 4 hours as your flight is delayed. Guess what? You can actually mix a song professionally using just this with the USB-C connection to your laptop and headphones, and actually have that mix translate once you get back to the studio, or of course, whenever you play it back on other devices. All right, so let's head in. I'll show you guys how the software works, how these buttons work, and how to load up your presets. Here we are in the ARC on-ear software. Now this is pretty self-explanatory, but we'll go through it real quick here. So the first thing you'll want to do is select your headphone model, and we have somewhere around 250. You can filter by type, by impedance, and even by brand. You can also favorite things. So, Atom Audio, for example, I have a pair of those. Just click that star and it will favorite them. Then it shows up in your favorites list. And again, tons of different headphones in here for you to choose from. Select them, and whenever you select them, they'll show up here, and then come up here and go from the space to the frequency response, and you'll see the curve of each of these different headphones. And of course, they're all going to have drastically different curves, right? So we'll stick with the Atom Audios right there. Then we'll come over here to calibration, pop that on, and you'll see the correction right there. So now we see the pre-curve. So that is the original headphones. Then the post curve, you can see, is now basically completely flat. So we've flattened out that increased low end, a bit of a dip here in the low mids, right? Kind of a rise up here somewhere around 2K. And what the calibration does, again, is just flatten that. That's not putting us in the room. This is just flattening our overall listening experience here. We can also skew this curve warmer or brighter, as you can see there. And also phase align that. Just pop that switch on right there. I can double click and it sets things back to the center. Then we'll come over here to the studio simulation. And this is going to be that perfectly tuned room. And turning this on, by the way, you're going to basically hear the sound come out of your head and be put in the room to where you actually feel like speakers are making the noise in your virtual room versus it being just injected left and right. So pop that on. You're in that perfect virtual mix room that's, perfectly treated with perfect monitors that don't color the sound. You have a width control, go all the way down to 10%, all the way up to 200%, an ambience switch right here. Obviously most rooms are going to have ambience, so you can pop that on or turn it off if you just don't like it. You also have the ability to solo each of the speakers just by clicking and holding. So you can kind of hear, the direction and how they sort of live in their space just by clicking and holding and solo each of those individually. We can also come up here to our graph and adjust things if we, just want to adjust things to fit our liking. Just that post curve. Double click on these nodes and it will set them back to the default. Of course, you have full control of things like your cue, band type, gain, etc., right up there. Next up is the virtual speakers. Now you don't have to use these because you already have virtual speakers, perfectly tuned virtual speakers in your studio simulation. But if you want to use real world speakers, we can pop that on and then go to select speakers. You have several different ones to choose from. So studio monitors, hi-fi, multimedia, right? Check it through an iPhone, TV, obviously different studio monitors. Select a studio monitor and you can see how that changes that post curve overall. You can flip that off. Goes back to that perfectly flat virtual studio simulation, or add the virtual real world speakers and hear how it reacts based off of real world speakers, all directly in your headphones, which is pretty cool. Check out the smartphone. It's really going to change, that overall post curve there. And of course, I can flip these things on or off directly on the unit. So even if I don't have the software up, no problem. Turn your calibration on off, studio simulation on off, and even your virtual speakers on or off, as long as you have that set to a function button, which I currently have it mapped to a function button. So if you want to set things, different things to your function button, right here where it says FN button assignment, all you do is choose one of these things that you want, even like a play pause for your DAW. But with virtual speaker selected, then my function button will turn that virtual speaker on or off. If I have mono or dim or mute, and of course it's going to mute or do whatever I want it to do. Turn the LEDs on or off. Now, what about our presets? Well, those are, again, pretty simple to set up. So we're on preset 1 here. Let's kind of set this up. Maybe I want some, a high-end 3-way speaker here. Studio simulation, just kind of set that up. Maybe have it curved a little more to the warmer side there. Okay, so now that is preset 1 with our high-end 3-way. I can double-click in here and then give it whatever name I want. High-end, maybe put Atom Audio in there so I know what headphones it's for. Now that is preset 1, but what if I want to, switch my speakers, for example, but I'm not going to have the software open for whatever, you're working somewhere else, and you don't have the software to mess with. No problem. What I can do is come over here to preset 2, and let's say for this one, I want to hear what it sounds like through maybe a TV. Right, so I'll set up preset 2 with the TV studio simulation, maybe have it a little bit wider for whatever reason, pop that on, and of course set your headphone model, and maybe we'll have phase align on in this case, and in this case, maybe we want to change this to play pause or turn off the LEDs or maybe mute or something like that, right, for that, for preset 2. Then here, I'll just name this TV. Very good. Then over here to preset 3, again, we can choose our headphones. We'll set this up. Maybe we don't want any ambience for whatever reason. We want phase align on, and we want phase align set for our function button. And maybe we want this a little brighter or whatever, right? We'll just leave it flat in this case. And then I can set this as maybe call it phase or phase align, right? So now we have 3 different presets. I click and you can see everything changes. You can also see right here on the actual unit how it's switching to different lights, right? 1, 2, 3. Now, if I don't have the software open, I can still switch my presets directly on the unit just by holding down the cal button and then pressing function. So just hold 1 down, press, and then you'll see it switches, in this case to 4, press again, switches to 5, and you get the idea of how this works. So now we're back to 1. So again, that means you can use this. It's completely portable. Use it wherever you are. Use it with a 3.5 millimeter, use it with a USB-C, use it with the software, use it without the software, really whatever you want. So that's what's really cool about this here. You can just set things up, check it on my TV, then switch through real quick, back to number 1, check it on your virtual speakers, press the function button, in this case, turn off the virtual speakers, again, directly on this, go over to preset 2 again, press your function button. In this case, we're going to mute with the function button this time on preset 2, so on and so forth. This one here will be turning phase align on or off on this preset, right? So there's no real way for me to show you what this sounds like, being that you would have to listen on headphones and the exact model of headphones that I have. But I will grab my Zoom, plug it in here, and get the output of the unit. Keep in mind, it's not a scientific test, and you really shouldn't judge it by this test that you're going to hear. And you will have to use the exact headphone models, the exact headphone model that I set up. Otherwise, it's going to sound very, very wrong and very, very bad. But again, I just want to give you sort of a vague idea of what it sounds like whenever you use the ARC On-EAR. Okay, so we have the output of the ARC On-EAR running into our Zoom, and the headphones I decided to go with are the Audio-Technica ATH M50Xs, just because there's tons of them out there and maybe you'll have those. So again, if you're not using this exact pair of headphones, it's going to sound very, very odd and probably very, very wrong. So don't judge this by the sound you hear if you're not using these exact headphones, okay? Let's start off with everything turned off. So just our headphones, full left and right injection. Ready? And then we'll turn on the calibration and you'll hear how it flattens everything out, okay? But definitely more low end in that. You'll hear it here too. Right, much flatter. So now we'll turn on the studio simulation, and what I want you to listen for is how the sound moves out from your head and puts you in that virtual space. I mean, you'll literally feel it move out from the center of your head out into the real world. It's a crazy feeling. Check this out. You hear how everything moved back? Let's check it out on something like this here.
I'm consumed. The world fades to this perfect tune. It's not music, it's a flood. Every wave rushes through my blood. I'm weightless, drowning in the sound. This is where heaven.
Did you feel everything move out? Let's do it again. Do you feel everything move back? Right? It moves back to full left and right whenever that's turned off. Let's check something like panning. So we'll turn off the studio simulation. We can leave the calibration on because again, that's just calibrating the headphones. It's not putting us in the virtual studio. So 100% left, 100% right. Right? You don't hear anything at all on the left or right whenever I pan that, and we just have basically the left and right injection of our headphones. If we turn on the studio simulation, now it's going to act more like you're in a room. If you pan something in a room, you're still getting reflections from all around you, right? So check this out. Hear the difference? You hear the interplay of the room, the interaction of the room, the crosstalk of the speakers, just like you're in a real room. So that's why something like this is important if you really want to mix well on just headphones. Next up, I'll go through some of these virtual speakers here, just so you can get an idea of what they might sound like. All right, let's go.
Then I'm consumed. The world It's not music, it's a flood. Every wave rushes through my blood. I'm weightless, drowning in the sound. This is where.
So if you're wearing the same headphones that I'm wearing, then you definitely heard it there, right? Once you got used to being in that virtual studio there for that long period of time, and I flipped it off, you definitely felt everything come back to fully left and right, taking you out of that virtual studio room. So again, we'll do this one more time. Real quick.
Music, it's a flood. Every wave rushes through my blood. I'm weightless, drowning in the
Yeah, everything just moves out of your head.
sound. This is where heaven is. It's not music, it's a flood. Every wave rushes through my blood. I'm weightless, drowning in the sound. This is where music, it's a flood. Every wave rushes through my blood. I'm weightless, drowning in the sound. This is where heaven is found.
That is IK Multimedia's ARC On-EAR, the complete headphone mixing solution, giving you that virtual studio, flattening your headphones no matter what brand you're using, and also giving you all of those different virtual speakers to check your mix on. Make sure that your mixes are translating properly to different devices, even when you're just mixing on headphones. Again, it really has everything you need all in this one tight little package. And by the way, even if you don't mix or master or record, you still may be interested in something like the ARC On-EAR if you consume a lot of media through headphones. You know, if you are an audiophile, you just want to hear music presented in a flat manner through headphones, through a virtual studio, or even check it out on different types of speakers, maybe for gaming, maybe for just, you know, listening to movies or music or whatever. While this is, of course, designed for the professional, you can also use it if you're just, you know, a consumer of media as well. And of course, I will have links for this in the description below. Go check it out for yourself, guys. Once again, IK Multimedia ARC On-EAR.